In this presentation, I will be going over POP3S and Simple Message Transfer Protocol, SMTPS, for both our Windows server and our Ubuntu server. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Thank you. For this section, I'm going to be going over the Dovecot server, which we'll be installing on our Ubuntu servers today. The Dovecot server is a mail delivery agent which is installed on the server for mail flow, etc. The one that we will be using is the POP3 server. There's many different ways to go about this, but the easy way is just to run your sudo apt install and get the Dovecot, as well as include IMAP and POP3 in there, so you get both to just start off. As with other installs that we've done, there have been multiple modules that you can add on if need be, but for this one, those are not necessarily needed. Dovecot is configured using SSL automatically by default. This is what makes Dovecot good, because it requires an SSL certificate in order to use it. During the install, you have to get an SSL certificate from your certificate issuing authority. For that, you'll have to create your self-signed and then add that to it, so that POP3 will be able to show on the server as open. You're gonna POP3 runs on two different ports. If you do POP3S, that's on 995, and which is what we're using in this class, and POP3 regular is just on port 110. For recommendations, I would say to disable default authentication behavior. For anything, you always want to make sure that you try to find a way to disable anything default, tear anything default down, add your own information to it whenever possible. Also, I would recommend to configure Dovecot to use SSL certificates. Although it's enabled by default on the server, it's still not configured. So to harden the server for this, I would say for you to personally go in and make sure that everything is configured to your liking. By that I mean making sure that the SSL certificate is authorized by the certificate authority, that is signed, that is actually working, and when you call it, POP3 is actually working and POP3 is actually showing. POP3S is actually showing. With Dovecot, you can actually make it show both POP3 and POP3S at the same time as open, if you do it correctly. The last recommendation I have is to configure Dovecot to use secure authentication. Like I said, you want to disable authentication behavior, but you also want to make sure that you have a secure authentication. For this next section, we're going to go over SMTPS, which is Simple Message Transfer Protocol Service, which we'll be installing on our ISS server on Windows 2019. ISS should already be installed, but Simple Message or SMTPS will have to go through a few different steps in order to get that installed. First, you're going to want to make sure that you actually fully have IS fully installed. Next, what you want to do is make sure you go in there and add this server to your ISS as a different feature. Once that is complete, you go through the steps. You can start configuring it. Just a little bit about SMTPS. SMTPS. This is a protocol for basically just sending email messages between servers. We don't necessarily have to have it fully configured, but we have to have it to be able to listen as an open port on our Windows server. Most email messages that are sent over the internet use this protocol to send and receive to one another. SMTPS is the secure version of SMTP, which is better, of course, because it has that extra layer of security, and it's at the transport layer in the OSI model, of course, as it is a transport protocol. There are a few recommendations that I would like to give for securing this on the server beyond just this configuration. First, I would say you want to access the access tab and set the IP to only known IPs for accessing your SMTPS. That is a great way to make sure that you know exactly who will be on your server, so that nobody's just on there just messing around. Next, I would say configure advanced delivery. Advanced delivery is just a way to customize a different amount of hops. You can add your fully qualified domain name in there. You can add a smart host if need be, and you can check many different things that you want. Last on the with SMTPS, I would say to have it enable logging. Logging is huge for the SMTPS server to see what is being sent and what is being sent and delivered. Same thing, but you would really want to know what is being sent, and that having that log is just something that I think would be a great way to harden the server. Just like with our Windows server, we had SMTPS. We have to do the same for the Linux server. We'll still be using SMTPS, but for the service that we'll be using it or installing it on, that would be Postfix. A Postfix is just a common software component on servers for sending and receiving email. There's a lot of different configuration options that you can use to improve its security, and that is what makes Postfix such a needed service on Linux. Every service that is connected to the internet will sooner or later will be eventually abused by different automated scripts that are run by people inside the company. So with postfix hardening, there's many different ways to go about it, but there's just a few that I would like to mention for the postfix hardening steps. So basically, I would say to disable verify. The verify command is used in an email address for validating the email server. Although this is great, it can cause a guesser or a hacker to be able to deliver spam to whoever they want if they verified that email. Although this is a good fix, still just keeping an eye on the logs to see if anybody has sniffed around and poked around into your to your files. It's still the best way to go about it. This is just a quick fix if you're using Postfix. The next I would say is to prevent unwanted email relaying by configuring different networks. This is because you have your local address, obviously, which is 127.0.0.0. For this, there that local is the only one that is actually added for the relaying. So you're gonna want to try to add multiple to just to give them a run around. Um, Last, I would say is to configure postfix to accept certain email domains. This one is a little bit tricky. As you obviously aren't going to know all the different domains that you're going to want them to accept. Even though that this is pretty difficult to configure, the good thing about this is that if it's configured correctly, you'll be able to test your postfix relay obviously, and once it's configured properly, relay will be denied to anything that isn't what is specified by you personally.